On the day Xiao Yang dismissed the harem for me, the court and the public praised the deep affection between the emperor and empress, a model for all ages. I believed it my whole life. He left behind his final decree just before his death. After my death, I shall be buried with Wanqing. Empress Shun shall be buried in a different auspicious burial site. This shall not be transgressed. The entire hall was astonished. The court officials knelt on the ground, none daring to raise their heads. The eunuch held the imperial edict, his hands trembling. I sat behind the screen, listening to my own heartbeat, one beat after another, as if it were being held in someone's hand and slowly crushed. So it turns out he dismissed his harem not for me, it was for her. He feared that after his death, Lin Wanqing's coffin would not be allowed to be placed in the imperial mausoleum, and she would be despised by future generations, so he first made me empress, staging a drama of deep affection between the emperor and empress to stabilize the court. After his death, he would issue a will, leaving the honor of being buried with her and the title of empress to that white moonlight hidden outside the palace. I was deceived my whole life. He didn't leave me a single word before he breathed his last. Open your eyes again. We returned to the day of the imperial concubine selection. The palace was filled with the finest ambergris incense. The empress sat at the head of the table, smiling as she asked me, "Madam Shun, you are beautiful and talented, virtuous and accomplished. Would you be willing to become the crown prince's consort?" All eyes in the hall were on me in my past life. I happily agreed, thinking it was a sign of divine mercy. But I know now that wasn't luck, it was a joke. I lowered my eyes and heard myself say, "This humble woman is unworthy and cannot bear the heavy responsibility of the crown prince's palace." 01. The room was completely silent. The queen's smile froze on her face. Probably because she hadn't expected me to refuse, the noble ladies around him all turned to look, and whispers rose up like a tide in my past life. I also rose to express my gratitude under such gazes. At that time, I was overjoyed and thought I was the most proud woman in the world. "Have you thought it through?" The empress's voice lowered, tinged with displeasure. I knelt on the ground, my back straight, my forehead pressed against the cold gold brick, and spoke each word clearly. "Your Majesty, I am foolish and lack talent and learning. I am afraid I am not up to the great responsibility of being the crown princess. I dare not delay Your Majesty." That's a perfectly watertight statement. He gave the empress a way out while simultaneously belittling himself to the point of being worthless. The empress remained silent for a moment, presumably weighing her options. Finally, she waved her hand, her tone becoming somewhat indifferent. "All right, you may leave now." I bowed respectfully, stood up, took 3 steps back, and then turned to walk out of the hall. As I approached the entrance of the hall, I brushed past someone. My breath hitched slightly. It was Xiao Yang. He was dressed in a black prince's court robe with a white jade belt around his waist. His features were refined and aloof, and he stirred up a cool breeze as he walked past me. He paused, then stopped. "Stop." I stopped walking, without looking back. "Just now in the palace, I overheard you saying something." His voice was deep and discerning, like a knife gently pressed against the back of my neck. I didn't turn around, but just looked down at the patterns on the gold bricks on the ground. "Since Your Highness has heard it, why ask again?" He paused for a moment, a flash of pain crossing his eyes. "You hate me." I suddenly felt like laughing. In my past life, I was the same way. No matter what I did, he always had an extremely cold attitude. I brewed medicine for him until late at night, and he said I was doing it for no reason. I shielded him from the Empress Dowager's harassment, and he accused me of acting on my own initiative. I took care of everything in the Eastern Palace for him, and he said I was too attentive. Now they're rushing to block my way. "This humble woman dares not," I said. "This humble woman is simply aware of her own limitations." After saying that, I didn't wait for his response and stepped straight across the threshold into the sunlight. A very soft, mocking laugh seemed to come from behind. I didn't turn back, nor did I dare to. I'm afraid that if I turn around, I'll see the indifference in his eyes and then remember those days in my past life when I was crushed bit by bit. 02. After leaving the palace gates, I boarded the Shun family's carriage. The moment the curtain fell, my hands began to tremble violently. It's not fear. Memories of my past life flooded back like a tidal wave, engulfing me completely. I remembered how I married him when Xiao Yanji was still the crown prince. Lin Wanqing was his childhood sweetheart, and they were in love. However, the Lin family was of too low social standing, and Lin Wanqing was an illegitimate daughter, so she could not become the crown princess. The queen chose me, the eldest daughter of the Shen family, with her family background, talent, and appearance, is a perfect match for the crown prince. When the empress asked me if I was willing, I nodded because I've long harbored feelings for him. I first met him at the Lantern Festival. He rode his horse from the other end of the long street, dressed in black robes and wearing a golden crown. His features were cold and stern, and once you saw him in the crowd, you couldn't take your eyes off him. I was only 12 years old then, and I didn't know what liking someone meant. All I knew was that my heart was beating very fast. Later, my father told me that the empress intended to choose me as the crown princess, and I was so happy that I couldn't sleep all night. I thought that as long as I was good enough and worked hard enough, he would eventually notice me. After we got married, he was lukewarm towards me, but not bad either. They gave us all the dignity and respect we deserved. He would come to my room on the 1st and 15th of each month to sit and ask if I had any difficulties in the palace. I would say no, and he would nod and leave. I thought that was just his personality, cold, reserved, and not good at expressing himself. It wasn't until the Mid-Autumn Festival, when I was 19, that I went to the study behind the East Palace to deliver mooncakes to him. But in the courtyard I saw the face he had never given me in his entire life. He sat on a stone bench, holding a feverish woman in his arms, his voice unusually gentle. "Don't be afraid, Ching-Ching, I'm here. No one will dare to bully you." The woman leaned against his chest, sobbing softly. He reached out to wipe her tears, his movements as gentle as if he were touching a fragile treasure. I was standing outside the courtyard gate when the food box I was carrying fell to the ground with a dull thud. He looked up and saw me. In that instant, a flicker of panic crossed his eyes, followed by wariness, and finally indifference. "Why are you here?" I bent down to pick up the food box and said, "Your Majesty, I have come to deliver mooncakes to you. Just put it there." I didn't put it. I picked up the food box, turned around, and left. The moon was very round that night. I walked along the long corridor of the East Palace, and my shadow was stretched very long. His voice came from behind me, as gentle as ever, but it was said to someone else, "It's all right, they've already left." That was the first time I realized that he wasn't incapable of loving, he just doesn't love me. Later, when he ascended the throne, he dismissed the 6 palaces, and the court and the public praised him for his devotion. I thought he had finally seen me, and that my 5 years of perseverance had finally paid off. But the last thing he left me before his death was an imperial edict delivered by a eunuch. "After I am gone, you shall move out of the empress's palace and make room for her. Wanqing has waited for me her whole life, and I cannot let her die without anyone to rely on." It turns out that his 5 years of devotion were nothing more than keeping himself chaste for Lin Wanqing. As for me, I was merely a pretext he used to silence his court officials. 03 I sat in the carriage for a long time, and the driver asked me cautiously, "Madam, shall we return to the manor?" When I came to my senses, I realized my face was covered in tears. I reached out and wiped it off, then took a deep breath. Return. When I returned to the Shen residence, my mother was already waiting for me. She sat in the main hall, holding a cup of tea in her hands. When she saw me come in, she put down the teacup, her eyes full of worry. What did Her Majesty the Empress say?" she asked, looking into my mother's concerned gaze. My throat tightened. In my past life, after I married into the Eastern Palace, my mother worried about me every day. Fearing that I would be mistreated in the palace, I stepped forward and took my mother's hand. "Mother, I do not wish to marry into the royal family." The mother was taken aback. "What's wrong? Did something happen in the palace?" "No, I just don't want to think about it." My mother looked at me, remained silent for a while, and did not ask any further questions, but simply patted the back of my hand gently. "If you don't want to, then don't. Your mother can support you." My nose tingled, and I almost burst into tears. "In this life, I will not go anywhere. I will stay by my mother's side." 04 The results of the selection of the imperial concubine were quickly determined. The crown princess has been chosen to be Lin Wanqing. It is unknown what methods Xiao Yang used to persuade the empress to agree to the marriage, or perhaps he didn't put in any effort at all. In my past life, I stood in the middle, which is why Lin Wanqing didn't have a chance in this life. I took the initiative to back down, and he finally got what he wanted. I was watering the flowers in the yard when the news came. The maid Xiaohe rushed over, panting, "Madam, madam, His Highness the Crown Prince has chosen the illegitimate daughter of the Lin family to be his crown princess." I hummed in agreement and continued watering the flowers. Xiaohe became anxious. "Madam, why aren't you in a hurry at all? How can that illegitimate daughter of the Lin family compare to you, in terms of family background, talent, and looks? She's not even worthy of carrying your shoes." "She's better than me," I said. "What's good about it?" I put down the kettle, looked at Xiaohe, and said seriously, "She is the person he truly loves." Xiaohe was stunned, opened her mouth, but didn't know what to say. She probably doesn't understand that there is a kind of defeat in this world that is not due to circumstances, but due to one's own heart. You are better than her in every way, but he just doesn't like you. You've lost. They lost completely, with no chance of turning the tide. In the days that followed, the marriage became the talk of the town. The crown prince made an exception for Lin Wanqing, petitioning for her father to be promoted 3 ranks, and personally oversaw the construction of the side courtyard of the East Palace, which was filled with his favorite crabapple trees. Everyone says that the crown prince is deeply in love with the Lin family's daughter and is a rare and wonderful man. I listened to these words without feeling any emotion. In my past life, I also listened to his deep affection for others, from heartbreak to numbness, and then to death. In this life, I will never be heartbroken again. 05 I thought that as long as I didn't marry him, my life would never cross paths with his again, but I was wrong. On the day of the flower festival, I took Xiaohe out to admire the flowers. In a tea house on the street corner, we met Xiao Yanji. He sat by the window on the 2nd floor, opposite Lin Wanqing. She was wearing a pale yellow spring dress and was smiling as she spoke to him. He poured her tea with gentle, natural movements, a faint smile playing on his lips. That was the expression I had begged for my entire past life but never received. I glanced at it once, then lowered my head and turned to leave. "Stop, it's that voice again." I paused, but didn't turn around. "Does Madame Shen not even bother with proper etiquette when she sees me?" His voice came from behind him, carrying a hint of nonchalant coldness. I took a deep breath, turned around, and curtsied. "Greetings, Your Highness the Crown Prince." He looked down at me, his gaze lingering on my face for a moment, before speaking calmly. "I've heard that Madame Shen has recently been looking at several households." My heart skipped a beat. Not many people know about this. How did he find out? "Your Highness is so busy with state affairs, yet you concern yourself with my trivial matters," I said. His eyebrows twitched slightly, as if he was somewhat displeased with my tone. "The Shen family and the Xiao family have been on good terms for generations, so it is only right that I express my concern." "Thank you for your concern, Your Highness. My marriage will be arranged by my parents." "Oh." He suddenly curled his lips into a smile, but the smile didn't reach his eyes. "That's good. I was worried you wouldn't be able to get married." I looked up at him. If I had heard these words in my past life, I would have been sad, upset, and felt that he was right. Who else could I marry besides him? But now, I just smiled. "Your Highness, rest assured, I will definitely marry in style and honor, and will never bring shame to the Shen family." His smile faltered slightly. The smile in the corner of her eyes faded away, like a candle flame blown out by the wind. Inch by inch, he looked at me, and there was something in his eyes that I couldn't quite put my finger on. I didn't investigate further and turned to leave. As I walked out of the tea house, I heard Lin Wanqing's voice coming from the 2nd floor. "What is Your Highness looking at?" he answered. "I didn't see anything, just a bird that flew away." 06 After returning home, I took out the roster my mother had given me and looked at it carefully. The roster contained more than a dozen names, all of whom were eligible unmarried young men from the capital. I looked at them one by one, but my mind kept wandering back to those things from my past life. I remember that in my previous life there was a scholar named Ji Yu who was ranked 3rd in the imperial examinations and was a very famous figure in the court. His name is Ji Yu Chongyuan. Born into a poor family, He achieved first place in the imperial examinations, progressing from the county level to the palace level. After entering the court, he was upright and honest, and fearless of powerful figures. In his previous life, he had impeached the crown prince because of a wrongful conviction. As a result, he was demoted to Lingnan and died on his way to his new post. It is said that he died without any relatives by his side. The body was left at a post station in the middle of nowhere, and it wasn't until 3 days later that someone collected it for burial. Upon hearing the news, Xiao Yanji only uttered one sentence: "Utterly foolish." I closed the register and went to find my mother. "Mother, I don't recognize any of the people listed here. Do you have any recommendations?" The mother looked at the roster, hesitated for a moment, and then said, "Sia, do you still remember Uncle Jiyu, an old friend of your father? He has a son named Chang Yuan, who just came in 3rd place in the imperial examination this year." My heart skipped a beat. "Is that Uncle Jiyu the one who studied with my father in his early years?" "That's right. Later, his family fell into poverty, and the two families had less contact, but your father often said that the Jiyu family's child was a promising talent and would surely achieve great things in the future." I put down the roster. "Mother, your daughter wants to see him." The mother was somewhat surprised. "You want to see him?" "This, mother, your daughter trusts your father's judgment." The mother was silent for a moment, then finally nodded. 07 3 days later, I met Jiyu Changyuan in the flower hall of the Shun residence. He was wearing a slightly worn blue long gown, which was faded from washing but was still clean. His posture was as upright as a pine tree. His eyebrows and eyes were clear and gentle, and he had an indescribable scholarly air about him, as if he had stepped out of an ancient painting. When he saw me, he was slightly taken aback, then bowed respectfully. "Greetings, Madam Shun." I returned the greeting. "Please have a seat, young Master Jiyu." He sat down, his posture upright, his back straight. Without the slightest hint of flattery or awkwardness, her hands were placed on her knees, her fingers long and clean, and her nails neatly trimmed. "Young Master Jiyu, do you know why I invited you here?" He looked up at me, his gaze calm. "I roughly know." "Oh, Madam Shun is of marriageable age, and Lord Shun has a past relationship with my father, so it seems." He was speaking when suddenly the tips of his ears turned red and his voice lowered. "I would like to see my appearance." I couldn't help but laugh. Having grown accustomed to Xiao Yanji's cold and mocking gaze in my past life, encountering someone who blushed suddenly felt somewhat novel to me. "What does young Master Jiyu think of me?" He suddenly looked up at me, his ears turning even redder. "Madam Shun, what is the meaning of this?" "I'm asking for young Master Gu's opinion." He was silent for a moment, as if he was seriously considering the question. Then he looked at me and said earnestly, "Madam Shun is very good." "What's so good about it?" "Anywhere is fine." His answer was straightforward and clumsy, without a trace of flowery language. As I looked at him, a strange feeling suddenly arose in my heart. I never paid attention to him in my past life. His world is too far away from mine. He was a lone minister suppressed by Xiao Yanji in the court, while I was the empress who looked up to Xiao Yanji in the deep palace. Even though we've met, it was only a fleeting glance from afar. We never exchanged a single word, but in this life, I'm sitting here, discussing marriage with a young person who was destined to die young in my previous life. "Young Master Jiyu," I looked at him intently. "I want to marry you. Will you marry me?" He was stunned. After a long while, he finally spoke, his voice somewhat hoarse. "Madam Shun, do you know what you're saying?" "I know. I am just a poor scholar from a humble background, with no family connections, no foundation, and a meager salary. I can't even afford a decent house in the capital. I am not good enough for you. You deserve it." He looked at me, something churning in his eyes, like a pebble thrown into a still pond, causing ripples to spread outwards. "Madam Shun." He stood up, bowed deeply to me, his voice trembling slightly. Jiyu, will never let you down." 08 After the news of my engagement to Jiyu Changyuan spread, it caused quite a stir in the capital. Some say that the eldest daughter of the Shun family has gone mad, giving up a perfectly good job as the crown princess to marry a poor scholar. Some say that Jiyu Changyuan climbed the social ladder and rose to prominence, Some people even speculated that I might have done something shameful that made me afraid to become the Crown Princess. I don't care about these idle chatter. I just didn't expect that Xiao Yanji would come to my door in person. He stood in front of the Shen residence, dressed in a black casual robe, without any ceremonial guards, only accompanied by 2 servants. His face was somber, even more gloomy than the sky that day. Shen Qingxi, come out here. I went outside and stood inside the doorway. What are your orders, Your Highness? You're going to marry Jiyu Chongyuan? Yes, he gave a cold laugh. Do you know who he is? A poor, penniless scholar from a humble background, powerless and without influence. His annual salary can't even buy you a single hairpin. What can he possibly give you? What he gave me, His Highness cannot give. What? Tell me about it. Sincere, his expression froze, as if he had been punched in the face. Your Highness, I looked at him calmly. You are the Crown Prince, the future Emperor, possessing the entire world and everything, but the one thing you cannot give is your true heart. Your true heart has long been given to Lin Wanqing. I will not contend or snatch, so why must Your Highness make things difficult for me? He stared at me intently, as if I were a stranger. He didn't speak for a long time. Shen Qingxi, you've changed. People always change, Your Highness. He remained silent, then finally turned and left. After taking a few steps, he stopped again, without looking back, his voice very soft. You weren't like this before. It was my daughter who was foolish in the past, I said. I'm not stupid anymore. He stood there, his back to me, without moving for a long time. The wind blew up his clothes, making them flutter. Finally, he walked away without looking back. I watched his retreating figure, feeling no emotion whatsoever. In my past life, how many times did I stand under the palace walls, gazing at his back, hoping he would turn around and look at me. He's finally come back, but I don't want to watch anymore. 09 On their wedding day, the procession stretched for miles in red. Jiyu Chongyuan, riding a horse and dressed in a bright red wedding robe, was waiting for me in front of the Shen residence. He was tall and elegant, with gentle features, and the red color added a touch of youthful vigor. His eyes lit up slightly when he saw me come out. I remember when I married Xiao Yang in my previous life, he didn't even come to welcome me. He just sent an official from the Eastern Palace to escort me into the mansion. My mother said that was the rule. His Highness the Crown Prince was of noble status and could not leave the palace easily. I believed it, and even sitting alone in the bridal sedan chair, my heart was still filled with sweetness. On the day Lin Wanqing got married, Xiao Yanji personally rode his horse to escort her for 10 miles. It's not that he can't come, it's just that he doesn't want to come for me, my wife. I've come to pick you up. I came to my senses. Jiyu Chongyuan stretched out his hand, palm up, looking at me with a gentle yet firm gaze. I slowly placed my hand into his palm. His fingers were slightly cool, but he held me tightly, as if afraid I would disappear. Let's go, I said. He curved his lips into a gentle smile, like the first warmth of spring. The sound of firecrackers was deafening. I was carried away from the Shen residence in a bridal sedan chair. As I exited the alley, I subconsciously lifted a corner of the sedan curtain and glanced back. At the end of the long street, a figure in black stood motionless in the setting sun. Watching me, it was Xiao Yang. Behind him were high palace walls, and the setting sun cast his shadow long and thin. I lowered the sedan curtain and didn't look at him again. 10. Life after marriage was peaceful and uneventful. Jiyu Chongyuan treated me very well. Every day after court, he would bring me roasted chestnuts from the street corner, wrapped in oil paper, which I would keep warm in my bosom until I got home. While I was embroidering, he would sit beside me reading, occasionally glancing up at me before quickly looking down again, his ears turning red. Why are you staring at me like that? One time I couldn't help but ask him. He put down his book and spoke earnestly. I'm afraid you'll disappear. I'm right here. Where can I go? I don't know either. I just always feel like you're fake. And I'm afraid you'll disappear in the blink of an eye. My heart ached. I put down my needle and thread, and took his hand. I won't disappear. I've married you, and that's for life. He took my hand in his own, his fingertips gently stroking the back of my hand, as if confirming my temperature, confirming that I was real. Sometimes I think, I wish I could have met him in my past life. But then I thought, in my past life, My heart and eyes were completely filled with Xiao Yanji. How could I see anyone else? In my past life, I was like a moth drawn to a flame, knowing full well that I would be burned to death, yet I still rushed headlong into that fire. What are you thinking about? He put down his book and asked me gently. I think I must have done a lot of good deeds in my past life to be able to marry you. He smiled and gently took my hand. It is because I have done many good deeds that I was able to marry you. Looking at his smiling face, I felt a warmth in my heart. So this is what it feels like to be truly loved. 11. I thought that I would have no further connection with Xiao Yanji from then on, but he wouldn't give up. He joined forces with his trusted advisors to submit a memorial, which resulted in Jiyu Changyuan being transferred to the Dali Temple to thoroughly investigate an old case. I heard about that case in my past life. It was a salt and iron embezzlement case from the previous dynasty, involving more than a dozen officials, a complex web of connections, and behind it all was Xiao Yang's own power base. Those who thoroughly investigated this case in their previous lives all died tragically. Some were silenced, some were framed, and some died mysteriously in office. I know what Xiao Yanji wants to do. He is taking revenge. He wanted Jiyu Changyuan dead. I went to see him that very night and waited in front of the East Palace gate for an hour before he was finally allowed in. He sat in his study, reviewing documents, without looking up, as if he had known I would come. Your Highness, I beg you to rescind your decree. I knelt on the ground, my voice trembling. He finally looked up at me. Shenqingzi, you've finally come to beg me. There was a strange sense of satisfaction in his voice, like a hunter who had finally caught his prey. He is my subject, so naturally he should share my burdens. He put down his pen and slowly leaned back in his chair. Whoever investigates that case will die. Letting him investigate is tantamount to killing him. So what? He looked at me, his gaze deep and unfathomable. You should have expected this day to come when you married him. I looked into his eyes, those eyes. I gazed at them my whole life in my past life, thinking they held the stars and the sea. Now I see clearly that there's nothing inside, only resentment and an almost insane obsession. Xiao Yanji, the first time I called him by his name. What exactly do you want? He remained silent for a long time. I want you back. I'm already married, I know. He looked at me, his eyes swirling with emotions I couldn't decipher. But I am the crown prince. What I want, I can always get. I took a step back. You're crazy, maybe, he smiled, but his smile was as cold as a knife. I already regret it. I looked at him and suddenly found him ridiculous. He thought that if he regretted it, everything could start over, but he never asked me if I was willing to wait for him. Xiao Yanji, I heard my own voice, as calm as a stagnant pool. The hurt you caused me cannot be erased with a simple regret. You can choose Lin Wanqing, and I can choose someone else. I won't choose you. I turned and left. The sound of a teacup shattering came from behind me. The crisp sound of porcelain breaking echoing in the empty hall. 12. Jiyu Changyuan still went to Dali Temple. I didn't stop him because I knew I couldn't. He's the kind of person who, once he's made up his mind about something, will definitely see it through to the end. He died tragically in his previous life because no one helped him in this life. I will not let him face it alone. The night Jiyu Changyuan received the imperial decree, I pulled him into the study, closed the door, and lowered my voice. Where do you plan to start with this case? He looked at me with some surprise. Does Xia also care about matters of the court? I didn't answer. Instead, I spread out a piece of paper and, based on my vague memories of my past life, drew a few names and relationships. The salt and iron embezzlement case, on the surface, was about unsold accounts. But in reality, it was about someone taking advantage of the canal transport to embezzle tax money. The key was not in the capital, but in Yangzhou. There was an accountant there named Zhu Demao, and the real account books were hidden in a secret compartment under the stove in his hometown. Also, the captain in charge of escorting the goods, Li Yong, had a secret letter in his concubine's possession, which was a promise from his superiors to silence him. Later, Li Yong was indeed killed, and that letter was used by his concubine as a life-saving charm. Jiyu Changyuan frowned more and more as he looked at the crooked handwriting on the paper. How do you know these things? I had a very long dream. I took his hand and looked intently into his eyes. I dreamt that in your past life you investigated this case, uncovered the truth, but were silenced on your way to take up your post in Lingnan, Changyuan. In this life, I will not let you die." He remained silent for a long time, then grasped my hand in return. His palm was warm. "Okay, I'll do as you say," I continued. "Furthermore, do not present what you have found to the Crown Prince or the Ministry of Justice first. Write a secret memorial and submit it directly to the Emperor. Xiao Yanji has eyes and ears everywhere in the court. Only by bypassing all the government offices and going straight to the Emperor can you preserve the evidence." Jiyu Changyuan gave me a deep look, but didn't ask about the origin of the dream. He simply nodded. "Don't worry, I'll be careful. That month was the most difficult 30 days of my life, day and night. I'm afraid of hearing bad news, unable to sleep at night." I sat under the lamp waiting for him. Sometimes he would come back very late, his official robe still carrying the distinctive scent of ink and dust from the Dali Temple's case files. I helped him change his clothes. He was so tired that he didn't even want to talk. He just held my hand and squeezed it gently, as if to tell me that he was okay. The situation in Beijing is becoming more and more tense every day. Jiyu Changyuan uncovered more and more people, each of whom was involved with Xiao Yanji's influence. The winds of change in the imperial court began to blow. Some of those who were originally on Xiao Yanji's side began to defect, some were observing, and some wanted to silence them. Someone threw a letter into our yard in the middle of the night. It only had 4 words written on it: "Enough is enough." After reading the letter, Jiyu Changyuan burned it. "Are you scared?" he asked me. "Afraid," I said, "but I'm more afraid of you dying." He smiled and pulled me into his arms. "With you here, I don't want to die." A month later, he found out the truth. The ledgers, witnesses, and physical evidence are all readily available. The evidence was irrefutable, implicating more than 10 officials in the court, including Xiao Yanji's confidants. The imperial court was shaken. The emperor himself intervened in the case, and Xiao Yanji couldn't suppress it even if he wanted to. He had to deal with those people. But he couldn't bring himself to harm Jiyu Changyuan because he was too clean. There is no weakness or vulnerability. His only weakness was me, and he had protected me under the wing of the Shen family from the very beginning. That night, when Jiyu Changyuan returned home, I threw myself into his arms and burst into tears. "Don't be afraid, I'm back." He patted my back gently, his voice very soft. "Xiao Yanji will not let you off the hook," I said. "I know. What should we do then?" He was silent for a moment, then spoke. "Sia, if one day I do something to wrong you, please forgive me." I looked up at him. "What are you up to?" He didn't answer, but gently kissed my forehead. 13 A month later, Xiao Yanji was deposed from his position as crown prince. The charges of forming cliques for personal gain, abusing power, and having malicious intent. It was a scheme orchestrated by my father, who had spent most of his life cultivating his influence in the court. Jiyu Changyuan, and the upright civil officials behind him who had been suppressed by Xiao Yanji. They spent a whole month collecting all the evidence of Xiao Yanji's crimes over the years, each and every one of them irrefutable. The emperor looked at the evidence of the crimes and trembled with rage. "I'm not dead yet, and you're already in such a hurry to overthrow the dynasty." Xiao Yanji knelt before the palace, his face deathly pale, unable to utter a single word. Lin Wanqing, who was behind him, was also demoted to a commoner and sent back to the Lin family that same day. That's when I understood what Jiyu Changyuan meant by what he said that night. When he said sorry, he meant he was going to personally bring down my ex-fiancé. He thought I would feel sorry for him, but I don't feel sorry for you. You did something that I can be proud of. I stopped in front of him and said earnestly, "You did nothing wrong to me, you did the right thing." He looked at me, his eyes slightly red. 14 The deposed crown prince Xiao Yang was imprisoned in a separate courtyard next to the imperial mausoleum, never to leave for the rest of his life. I went to see him once. He sat in the courtyard, his hair mostly white, looking much older. The brocade robe he wore had been replaced with ordinary blue cloth, and he looked as if his soul had been taken away, leaving only an empty shell. When he saw me, he looked up and gave a bitter smile. "Are you here to laugh at me? I've come to say goodbye." He remained silent for a long time. "Shen Qingzi," he asked me in a hoarse voice, if I hadn't chosen Lin Wanqing in the first place, would you have married me. I looked at him. My choice, from beginning to end, has always been to marry Jiyu Chongyuan. He didn't say anything more. I turned and left. A very soft sob came from behind, like the final lament of a wounded wild beast in the deserted mountains. The sound was very soft, but it echoed in the empty courtyard for a very long time. I didn't turn around. 5 years later, spring comes early to Jiangnan, and the crabapple blossoms in the courtyard are in full bloom. I planted it myself, and it has grown from a small sapling into the lush tree it is today. I sat on the veranda embroidering, while Jiyu Chongyuan sat beside me reading. My daughter chased butterflies in the yard, her laughter ringing out like a string of silver bells swaying in the spring breeze. Father, mother, come quick. He put down his book, stood up with a smile, and went to chase after his daughter. The sunlight fell on him, on his gentle brows and eyes, and on his daughter's fluttering skirt, making him look like a beautiful painting. I put down my needle and thread, looked at them, and felt incredibly calm. This is the life I want. There are no palace walls, no scheming, and no bitterness of unfulfilled desires. There was no desolation of weeping alone in the dead of night, no despair of watching him be affectionate with someone else, no loneliness of dying on his sickbed with no one to care for him. Only one courtyard, one house, one husband, one daughter, and a lifetime of peace. The wind blew through the crabapple trees, and the petals fluttered down, landing on my shoulders and in his palm. He turned to look at me, his eyes gentle. Sia, I'll marry you again in my next life. I smiled. Good, end of article, extra. Xiao Yanji 1. I died once. Before I died, I held the imperial edict in my hand, which read, to be buried with Wanqing. The eunuch asked me if I had anything else to say to the empress. I said no. I thought I had done nothing wrong, but the last thing I saw as my consciousness sank into darkness was not Wanqing, it is Shenqingzi. It was during the Mid-Autumn Festival when she was 19 that she stood outside the gate of the East Palace courtyard, holding a food box in her hand, her eyes red as she looked at Wanqing in my arms. She didn't say anything at that moment. She just bent down, picked up the food box, and turned to leave. I called her name. She didn't turn around then. Darkness swallowed everything too. When I opened my eyes again, the scent of ambergris filled my nostrils. The magnificent hall was filled with noble women and ladies of high rank, with the Empress Dowager sitting at the head of the table. There was also the woman in the pale yellow dress kneeling in the center of the hall. It was the day of the imperial concubine selection. These were the days when Wanqing, due to her humble background, was barred from becoming the crown princess. My heart was pounding violently in my chest. What was my biggest regret in my past life? It was not that I let Shenqingzi down. I never felt I had let her down, not even until I died. I have given the Empress all the respect she deserves. What more could she possibly want? My biggest regret is Wanqing. She followed me her whole life, from the Eastern Palace to the Imperial Palace, but she never had a legitimate identity. Born a commoner, and as a concubine's daughter, she was forever hidden outside the palace walls. The last will and testament I left before my death was, in essence, nothing more than wanting to give her the dignity she deserved in death. Unfortunately, it was too late in this lifetime. I will make up for this regret. I want to marry Wanqing openly and honestly, give her the title of crown princess, and let her no longer suffer injustice. As for Shenqingzi, this humble woman is unworthy and cannot bear the heavy responsibility of the crown prince's palace. She knelt in the hall, her voice neither too loud nor too soft, her back ramrod straight. I stood outside the palace gate, and upon hearing those words, I paused slightly. She refused. In her past life, she had happily agreed, believing it to be a sign of divine favor. I frowned slightly, but didn't think much of it. That's fine. She voluntarily stepped aside, saving me the trouble of persuading my mother. In her past life, she occupied this position and suffered so much injustice, neglected, ignored, and shedding tears alone in the dead of night. She will never have to go through those things again in her life. I even feel that this is an explanation I owe her. She should be grateful. But as I walked past her, I couldn't help but ask, that's a habitual condescending attitude. What did she reply? I didn't pay much attention to it. All I remember is that when she left, the sunlight fell on her, and she didn't look back. 3. I went to see my mother and told her that I wanted to marry Lin Wanqing as expected. The Empress Dowager objected. The Lin family's illegitimate daughter is of too low a social standing to become the crown prince's consort. I knelt for a whole day and asked my father to intercede on my behalf. He promised Lin Wanqing's father a promotion of 3 ranks and personally supervised the construction of the side courtyard of the East Palace, which was planted with crabapple trees. The Empress Dowager finally relented. I got what I wanted. On the day Wanqing entered the Eastern Palace, she wore the bright red auspicious robe of the crown princess. Her eyes were red, and she held my hand as she spoke. "Your Highness." I never dared to imagine this day would come. I held her hand, and a feeling of contentment welled up inside me. The regrets of my past life have finally been made up for. During that time, I almost forgot about Shen Qingzi. Occasionally, I would hear people mention that Madame Shen was looking for a husband, and I would just grunt him and not take it to heart. Who she marries is none of my business. Until the flower festival, I took Wanqing to a tea house to admire the flowers, from the window seat. On the 2nd floor, I could see her at the street corner. She even went up to the tea house, probably looking for someone. She spotted me at a glance. Her gaze lingered for a moment, then she lowered her head and turned to leave. I blurted it out. "Stop." She paused, but didn't turn around. Does Madame Shen not even bother with proper etiquette when she sees me? She turned around, curtsied, and her movements were so perfect that there wasn't a single flaw. "Greetings, Your Highness the Crown Prince." Looking at her face, I felt a strange sense of irritation welling up inside me. Her eyebrows and eyes were still the same, but her gaze was different. In my past life, when she looked at me, her eyes shone with light, that kind of cautious, ingratiating light, as if afraid of upsetting me. The light has now gone out. The way she looked at me was like she was looking at a stranger. No, even less than a stranger. "I've heard that Madame Shen has recently been looking at several households," I heard myself ask. As soon as the words left my mouth, I regretted them. What does this have to do with me? Her eyebrows twitched slightly. "Your Highness is so busy with state affairs, yet you concern yourself with my trivial matters." His tone was neither humble nor arrogant, but even carried a hint of aloofness. I felt inexplicably displeased. The Shen family and the Xiao family have been on good terms for generations, so it is only right that I express my concern. "Thank you for your concern, Your Highness. My marriage will be arranged by my parents." "Oh," I curled my lips into a smile, but the smile didn't reach my eyes. "That's good. I was worried you wouldn't be able to get married." As soon as I said it, I was stunned. She looked up at me. There was no sadness, no grief, not even a sense of injustice. She just smiled. "Your Highness, rest assured, I will definitely marry in style and honor, and will never bring shame to the Shen family." After saying that, she turned and left. I sat there, not even noticing that the teacup in my hand had gone completely cold. Wanqing asked from across the table, "Does Your Highness know that Madame Shen?" "No, she's really beautiful." I didn't respond. "Is it pretty?" In my past life, I never thought she was beautiful. I just found her bland, boring, and annoyingly attentive. I put down my teacup, my mind momentarily in turmoil. Then I told myself, "You're overthinking it. You already have Wanqing." For when the news of her marriage to Jiyu Chongyuan reached my ears, I was reviewing memorials in the study of the Eastern Palace, when a eunuch cautiously came to report, "Your Highness, Madame Shen has betrothed herself to Jiyu Tanhua." My pen paused for a moment. Which Jiyu Tanhua? Lord Jiyu Chongyuan, the 3rd-ranked scholar in this imperial examination. I remember now. In my past life, there was that poor scholar whom I banished to Lingnan and who died at a post station, a powerless and impoverished scholar, whose annual salary couldn't even buy Shen Qingzi a single hairpin. She married him. Is she crazy? "Sure," I asked. "Confirmed. The Shen family has accepted the betrothal gifts from the Jiyu family, and the wedding date is set for the 8th day of next month." I put down my pen, leaned back in my chair, and stared at the roof beams for a long time. Wanqing brought in a bowl of white fungus soup and asked me with a smile, "Your Highness, I added osmanthus to today's soup. Please try it." I took the bowl and took a sip. I couldn't taste anything. "Your Highness, what's wrong? You don't look well." "It's nothing, I'm just a little tired." Wanqing didn't ask any further questions, and went out after clearing away the bowls and spoons. After she left, I sat alone in the study, thinking about something over and over again. Why did Shin Qingxi marry Jiyu Chongyuan? She married someone else, someone who is inferior to me in every way. She would rather marry a poor scholar than become my crown princess. She doesn't like me anymore. When this thought popped into my head, it felt like I'd been struck by something. It's not sadness, it's because I'm unwilling to accept it. I can't explain why I'm so unwilling to accept this. I already have Wanqing, and I have already made up for the regrets of my past life, but I just couldn't accept it. 5. I went to her wedding. I didn't tell anyone, and only brought 2 servants. I stood at the end of the long street, watching from afar as the big red sedan chair was carried out of the Shen residence. Jiyu Chongyuan rode ahead on horseback, dressed in a bright red wedding robe. Looking spirited and triumphant, looking at that bridal sedan chair, I felt as if something had been ripped out of my chest. As the bridal sedan chair passed by me, the curtain was lifted slightly by the wind. I saw her face. She lowered her head, a faint smile playing on her lips, her eyes crinkling. It wasn't the kind of smile that she gave me in a past life when she married me. That smile was full of caution, like holding a fragile piece of porcelain, afraid that she hadn't done something well enough. This kind of laughter is different. It gives me peace of mind. It is certainty. It's a serene smile that only someone who is loved can have. The sedan curtain fell, obscuring that face. The bridal sedan chair has gone far away. I stood there, and the wind blew by, making me shiver from the cold. That night, I drank a lot of alcohol. Wanqing was advising me to drink less, but when I glanced at her, she suddenly seemed like a stranger in my past life. I wronged Shin Qingxi for her sake, and that was the end of my life. But Shin Qingxi has married someone else in this life, and I don't think Wanqing can fill that void. This thought was like a bucket of cold water, dousing me completely. I put down my wine glass. Wanqing, you should go back first. I want to be alone for a while. She paused for a moment, but then obediently left. The moment the study door closed, I heard my heart pounding, as if it were being held in someone's hand. I recalled the first winter of Shin Qingxi's marriage into the Eastern Palace. In my previous life, the floor heater broke, and she was worried I'd get cold, so she sewed a hand warmer cover for me and put it in my hand, smiling as she said this. If your highness is warm, then I am warm too. What did I say back then? I said, this is unnecessary. She smiled and did not refute. Later, I threw that hand warmer cover into a corner of the study and never used it again. I suddenly really want to find it, but this is this life. She didn't marry me in this life. She never sewed a hand warmer cover for me. They never stood up for me against the Empress Dowagers, Jiaonan, making things difficult for me. I never knelt in the snow for more than 2 hours. He didn't secretly tug at my sleeve in the middle of the night and ask, can I hold your hand to sleep? There was nothing there. I never had her. All the good things I took for granted in my past life were not actually taken for granted. She left. It has completely and cleanly disappeared from my life. 6. I am not reconciled. I think that as long as Jiyu Chongyuan is dead, she will still have a chance to turn back. The salt and iron embezzlement case in my past life was orchestrated by my trusted confidants. Whoever investigates will die. In my previous life, I used this case to get rid of Jiyu Chongyuan. In this life, I will do it again. On the day Jiyu Chongyuan received the imperial decree and went to report to the Dali temple, I watched him from afar from the palace wall. He was dressed in a blue official robe, with an upright posture, clear and honest features, and an air of dignity that I cannot describe. It wasn't the arrogance of the powerful and wealthy, but a purity that emanated from their very bones. I suddenly remembered what Shin Qingxi had told me, what he gave me. His Highness cannot give. What? Sincere. At the time, I didn't think much of it. How much is it really worth? But now, looking at Jiyu Chongyuan's back, I suddenly feel, perhaps she is right. 7. For that month, I waited for news from the Dali temple every day. Once Jiyu Chongyuan discovers something he shouldn't have, I'll send someone to silence him, frame him, and make him die without a trace. But what I got was Shin Qingxi. She knelt before the East Palace gate, begging me to retract my decision. As I sat in my study, a strange sense of satisfaction welled up inside me when I heard the eunuch report. She finally arrived. She finally came to beg me. Let her in. She went into the study, knelt on the floor, and her voice trembled. Your Highness, I beg you to rescind your decree. I looked at her. She has lost weight. She lost weight in just 1 month after getting married. Is it because you're worried about Jiyu Chongyuan? A sudden surge of irritation welled up inside me. Shen Qingzi, you've finally come to beg me. I put down my pen and leaned back in my chair. Whoever investigates that case will die. Letting him investigate is tantamount to killing him, she said. So what? You should have expected this day to come. When you married him. I looked into her eyes. Waiting for her to cry, waiting for her to beg me. In her past life, when she was wronged, her eyes would always well up with tears, but she would force herself not to let them fall. That restrained look bothered me and made me realize, she does care about me after all. But now, she didn't cry. There were no tears in her eyes. Only something I couldn't understand. It is calm. It's a kind of profound tranquility where nothing matters anymore. Xiao Yanji, she called my name for the first time. What exactly do you want? I want you back. She took a step back. I'm already married, I know, but I am the crown prince, and I can always get what I want. She looked at me, and a hint of pity suddenly appeared in her eyes. Mercy, she actually pitied me. You're crazy, she said. Maybe, I smiled. A smile as cold as a knife. I already regret it. When I said that, I even believed it myself. I thought my regret was letting her go, but her next sentence completely stunned me. Xiao Yanji, the hurt you caused me cannot be erased with a simple regret. You can choose Lin Wanqing, and I can choose someone else. I will not choose you. She turned and left. I grabbed the teacup on the table and smashed it on the ground. The sound of porcelain shattering echoed in the empty hall. I think I really made a mistake. A month later, Jiyu Chongyuan uncovered the salt and iron case. He collected all the evidence. The ledgers, witnesses, and physical evidence are all readily available. The evidence is irrefutable. The Shun family, along with those upright officials I had suppressed, had already laid their plans in the court. The emperor was furious. In the Golden Palace, the eunuch read out the imperial decree. Crown Prince Yanji has formed cliques for personal gain, abused his power, and harbored treacherous intentions. Effective immediately, he is hereby deposed as a commoner and imprisoned in the imperial mausoleum villa, never to be released for the rest of his life. I knelt in the hall, listening to the imperial decree, my mind completely blank. It's not fear, it's a ridiculous, absurd feeling. I looked up, trying to find someone in the main hall. I want to find Shen Qingzi. I want to tell her, you're right, you made the right choice in selecting Jiyu Chongyuan. You made the right choice not to choose me. But she didn't come. She doesn't need to come. She won. She didn't win because she made me lose, but because she's living a better life than me. 9. The days of imprisonment were long. It was long enough for me to have enough time to recall every detail of my past life. It's not the glory and wealth of a past life. It is Shen Qingzi. The year she married into the Eastern Palace, she was afraid at night and secretly tugged at my sleeve to ask me a question. Your Highness, may I hold your hand while we sleep? I said, cannot. She said obediently withdrew her hand, turned over, and didn't move all night. I thought she was asleep. Looking back now, I think she probably cried. 10. The day she came to visit me at the villa, it rained heavily. I sat on the porch, my hair mostly white, looking much older. She walked in holding an umbrella, wearing a light blue jacket, and still sporting the same white magnolia hairpin in her hair. Jiyu Chongyuan was not behind him. I was actually relieved. Are you here to laugh at me? I asked. I've come to say goodbye. It turns out she was going to Jiangnan with Jiyu Chongyuan. Jiangnan. I suddenly remembered that in my past life she had said that she loved spring in Jiangnan and wanted to see the crabapple blossoms. I said, the palace has everything. What's the point of going to Jiangnan? She smiled but didn't say anything. Now she can finally go together with Jiyu Chongyuan. Shen Qingzi, I asked her in a hoarse voice, if I hadn't chosen Lin Wanqing in the first place, would you have married me? I waited for her to say yes, even a perfunctory maybe, but she didn't. She looked at me, her gaze as calm as a mirror. My choice, from beginning to end, has always been to marry Jiyu Chongyuan. These words were like a dull knife, slowly cutting into my chest. She turned around, holding the umbrella, and walked step by step toward the courtyard gate. The rain was heavy, and the wind made her skirt flutter loudly. I want to catch up with him, but I can't stand up. It's not because my legs are weak, it's because I'm not qualified. The moment she stepped out of the courtyard gate, I suddenly called out, Shinchingzi, she paused for a moment. There was no turning back. How have you been in this life? The rain was very loud. I don't know if she heard it. She stood there for a while. Then we continued walking forward. There was no response. But I already know the answer. She's doing well. It's a million times better than when we were together. And many years later, I heard that there was a lady in the Shun family in Jiangnan who would plant crabapple trees in her courtyard every spring. Her husband planted a yard full of flowers for her, and in spring, the petals covered the stone steps. They have a daughter, lively and lovely, just like she was when she was little in her life. She lived without palace walls, without scheming, and without the bitterness of unfulfilled desires. Only one courtyard, one house, one husband, one daughter, and a lifetime of peace. And I, sitting in a villa next to the imperial mausoleum, am white-haired and emaciated. Outside the door lies an endless expanse of wild grass. Inside lies a ground littered with shattered memories. I finally admit that it wasn't that she was unlucky enough to be unable to shoulder the heavy responsibility of becoming the crown prince. It is my misfortune that I cannot bear her sincere feelings, past life and present life. 2 lifetimes. I'm not good enough for her. End of extra. That's all for the first story. Don't go away. The next story is even more exciting. The young master of the Duke's mansion lost his memory after falling from his horse. He kept insisting on breaking off the engagement we had been made together since childhood. All the noble ladies in the capital are waiting to see me make a fool of myself. Ignoring my mother's objections, I ran to the Duke's mansion to demand an explanation from Zhao Cheng'an, only to overhear him laughing and talking with my cousin in the corridor. Ruining. Your idea is the best. Let's go to Jiangnan for a year or 2. Once you have a child, you won't have to worry about your mother not letting you into the house. As for Jiwan, she is devoted to me and we were engaged since childhood. After you enter the house, I will welcome her in with the same courtesy as a wife. The term equal wife is merely a common saying among merchants. In reality, it simply refers to a concubine of a high-ranking official. I heard it clearly, and through the porch, I saw the 2 of them whispering sweet nothings to each other, all lovey-dovey. I suddenly felt utterly bored and turned back home. 01 Zhao Cheng'an was in the hunting grounds when his horse suddenly spooked and he fell off. Several imperial physicians were present at the time, and after examining the young master, they all said that he was fine. Therefore, although I was worried, I let it go. They each returned to their residences. As evening fell, I heard from others that Zhao Cheng'an, the heir of the Duke's mansion, had woken up. At that moment, I hurriedly sent a servant to inquire after him. Putting aside our betrothal since childhood, even just considering our childhood friendship, I would still feel indebted to him. After his fall from his horse, when the servant returned, I hurriedly asked from the outer hall, "Have you found out if the young master has woken up? Is he all right?" The servant girl, Xiaohe, lowered her head and whispered, "Miss, the young master has woken up, and the imperial physician has been summoned from the manor. He is fine. He should recover in 1 or 2 days." Upon hearing this, I couldn't help but say, Amitabha, may the Bodhisattva protect us. Xiaohe glanced at me, then hesitated, as if she wanted to say something but didn't. "What's wrong? Is there anything else?" I asked hurriedly. Xiaohe hesitated, looking around, stammering but refusing to speak. "Xiaohe, what exactly happened?" My wet nurse, Granny Li, frowned. "If the young master really hurt himself, why are you hiding it from Miss?" Upon hearing this, Xiaohe knelt down with a thud and cried out, "Granny, Miss, no, the young master is naturally unharmed, but he has lost his memory after waking up. He remembers everyone else, but he forgot about Miss." They even went so far as to say that they had heard that the young lady was spoiled and willful since childhood, and was pampered by our master. She was too arrogant and unworthy of being a match for him. They're making a scene, demanding that the old lady of the Duke's mansion come to our house to break off the engagement. The Duke's mansion is in complete chaos. He also said, I felt as if my heart had fallen into an ice cave, chilling me to the bone. I tried to calm myself down. My mother had always said, "Don't panic when things happen." What else did he say? Even though I tried to calm myself down, my voice still trembled slightly when I asked the question. Xiaohe prostrated herself on the ground, not daring to look at me, and whispered, The young master also said that even if he dies, he cannot marry you, miss. Please don't worry about it. The young master is just sick and has forgotten about you. I felt as if I had been struck by lightning, and stood there dumbfounded, not knowing where I was. The wet nurse got up, beckoned Xiao He to the outer corridor, and whispered, "Is that really what the young master said?" Xiao He slapped herself and said in a low voice, "Granny, if it weren't for the young master saying these words himself, I would never dare to talk nonsense even if I had the guts of a bear and the gall of a leopard." He said many more unspeakable things, which I dare not say. Granny Li frowned and asked, "What else did he say?" "He also told me to come back and tell Miss not to have any ulterior motives, that he already has someone he likes and would never marry Miss." I understood what I was hearing from inside, and immediately ran outside. "Miss, where are you going?" Granny Li called out hurriedly. I was so angry that my face turned pale, and I said in a trembling voice, "I'm going to confront him." Without waiting for a second, I took off running. 02 The Duke's mansion was next to my house. Zhao Cheng'an and I grew up together since childhood, and our two families had arranged a marriage between us when we were little. We've played games like riding a bamboo horse since we were little. When I reached marriageable age, I understood matters of the heart. Since we had been engaged long ago and had grown up together, my feelings for him were naturally different from those for others. Gradually, my heart and eyes were filled only with him, and I could no longer accommodate anyone else. Even when a certain influential person subtly confessed his feelings to me, I pretended to be clueless and said I didn't understand. I was so anxious when I heard that he had fallen from his horse that I couldn't sit still or lie down. I sent my servant to keep asking around outside his house. Now, upon suddenly hearing such devastating news, I didn't even call for help and ran out as fast as I could. He ran all the way to the Duke's mansion, only to find an ordinary carriage parked there. I didn't pay any attention and just wanted to go in through the side gate. To my surprise, just as I reached the corner, I heard Zhao Cheng'an's laughter. "Ruining, your idea is still the best. Pretend to have amnesia after falling from the horse. Even if Jiwan wants to cause trouble, she won't have anything to do with it," Zhao Cheng'an said with a smile, not at all like someone who had fallen from the horse and was injured. I bit my lip and stood behind the porch. It was already dark, and although there were lights on at the entrance of the Duke's mansion, none of those lights fell on me. By the light of the candle, I saw Zhao Cheng'an helping a woman with a seductive and alluring demeanor walk out. Because it was dark, for a moment I felt that the woman looked familiar, but I couldn't recognize her. "Young master, is it really all right for us to leave like this?" The woman had a beautiful voice, delicate and timid, like a nightingale singing in a valley. The moment she opened her mouth, I knew who she was. My cousin Zhu Ruolan is not only beautiful, but also has a lovely voice and is good at singing folk songs. The voice was lingering and poignant, echoing for 3 days. "If we don't leave now, when will we?" Zhao Cheng'an laughed. "If Jiwan finds out, she'll turn my Duke's mansion upside down." "But I didn't bring any luggage," Zhu Ruolan said in a low voice. "We have 7 or 8 estates in the south. Do you think we'd be short of your things?" "Ruolan, you should know that you are about to become the young mistress of our Duke's mansion. When you go out, you will be taken care of and served by others. How could you possibly lack anything?" Upon hearing this, Zhu Ruolan buried her head in Zhao Cheng'an's arms. "Zhao Lang, is this real? I feel like I'm dreaming." Zhu Ruolan whispered sweetly. I leaned against the wall, feeling icy cold all over. In fact, if I hadn't been holding onto the wall, I probably wouldn't have been able to stand up. "Yes, it's all true, of course," Zhao Cheng'an said with a smile. "Ruolan, don't be afraid, let's go out and hide for a while. You're pregnant, and I'll come back and ask the old lady for help. It's no big deal, is it?" "What about Sister Jiwan?" Zhu Ruolan asked tentatively. I clenched my fist tightly, my nails digging into my flesh. A feeling of suffocation washed over me in waves. I opened my mouth wide, trying to breathe, but everything in front of me went black. But I heard Zhao Cheng'an say, without missing a single word, "Jiwan. Don't worry, she's devoted to me. I'll marry her as a concubine." Which wealthy family doesn't have 3 wives and 4 concubines? Besides, with so many men in the capital, where else could she find a good young man with a better family background and better looks? That old fox, Prime Minister Jiang, would never allow his daughter to marry into an ordinary family. In the past, I had never thought about these questions. What should I do if I don't marry Zhao Cheng'an? The royal family has always had few heirs. His Majesty currently has only one uncle, who just celebrated his 50th birthday last year. A little princess, only 9 years old, is currently being raised by the Empress Dowager. The remaining noble families had men of marriageable age who were either already married or were dissolute playboys. For example, the son of Lord Ju was disabled from a young age. Lord Ju had arranged for 2 girls from humble families to marry him early on, hoping they would give birth to several healthy grandsons to inherit the family business in the future. There are a few other families left, but they are all families that my family doesn't get along with. In terms of family background, there is a significant difference between them and my family. Zhao Cheng'an is certain that not only am I completely devoted to him, but there aren't any suitable young men left in the entire capital, so he could elope with my cousin without any restraint. Then, after my cousin entered the family, he manipulated me into becoming his concubine. The term equal wife is merely a saying among merchants. It simply refers to a concubine of high status. 03. While I was still in a daze, Zhao Cheng'an had already helped Zhu Ruolan into the carriage, and the ordinary-looking carriage disappeared into the night. I remained standing motionless, leaning against the wall. I don't know how much time passed before Granny Li found me. Seeing that I looked strange, she quickly ordered 2 strong female servants to carry me back home, but I was like a lost soul, and no matter how people called me, I didn't respond. At Prime Minister Jiang's residence, a doctor was summoned overnight, and the imperial physician was invited the next day, and so, it all became a chaotic mess. When the mother discovered that her cousin Zhu Ruolan had not returned home all night, she did not dare to make a fuss. She only ordered the servants and guards to go out and look for her. Ruolan is still an unmarried girl. If word gets out that she didn't come home all night, it will damage her reputation. Take the money and ask around the city. You must find her. As she spoke, the mother wiped away her tears again, crying, "What happened to these 2 children? One has gone missing, and the other has lost his soul. If anything were to happen to me, how would I live?" By the afternoon of the following day, I saw my mother crying uncontrollably, her eyes red and swollen, and her expression haggard for some reason. I suddenly burst into tears. Seeing this, Granny Li, a discerning woman, quickly said, all right, madam, it's good that Miss can cry." I hugged my mother tightly and cried, "Mother, don't look for my cousin anymore. She eloped with Brotherin." My mother was stunned and quickly covered my mouth, whispering, "Jiwan, how can you say such nonsense? It's true." I then told my mother everything I had seen at the gate of the Duke of Zhengguo's mansion. Upon hearing this, my mother stared at me blankly for a long time, then couldn't help but shed tears, saying, "That child came to our household at the age of 13, when have I ever mistreated her? How could she do something so absurd and outrageous?" I lowered my head and remained silent. My cousin, Zhu Ruolan, is actually several generations removed from my family. Back then, she sold her family property, hired a carriage, and ran to the capital to seek refuge with the Prime Minister's mansion. After reading the letter and travel permit, my father did not actually want to take her in. He simply said that he had no dealings with the Zhu family of Jingju, so he could order the servants and guards of the mansion to escort her back to her hometown. Seeing her in her coarse clothes, thin and haggard appearance, her mother felt pity for her and persuaded her father, "It's so kind of the child to travel all this way. Jiwan doesn't have anyone by her side, so why don't we keep her here? Does our Prime Minister's residents lack food? It's just a matter of adding another dowry in the future." Upon hearing this, the father remained silent. Later, he said to the mother, "Ruolan is a girl with a small face, a pointed chin, and charming eyes. I'm afraid she's not well behaved. If she goes to find her husband in the future, people will definitely gossip and criticize her. Since you've kept her, you should teach her a lesson properly." Therefore, my mother specially invited a senior aunt from the palace to teach us etiquette and manners. Zhu Ruolan was originally illiterate, but my mother asked me to teach her to read and write. He always said, "The capital city is no different from the countryside. Girls should know a few words and learn to read account books so that they can manage the household well in the future and avoid being bullied by their husband's family. Ju Ruolan started learning late, so she learns everything slowly. I don't mind the trouble she goes through. I guide her to write and recognize characters stroke by stroke, and I also teach her some basic poems. To prevent her from being ridiculed by the noble ladies of Kyoto, she found learning to read troublesome, account books tedious, and rules tiring. I always complain of being tired. She also said that back home, her aunt had said that a girl's life depended solely on her husband's family, nothing else matters. After hearing these nonsensical words, I didn't know what to say. After we came of age, there was one thing she did that she was very diligent about. Whenever she went to the Duke's mansion or to see Zhao Cheng'an, she would always beg me to take her with me. At first, Zhao Cheng'an had some reservations about me bringing her along on everything. He once said to me privately, "Jiwan, we've arranged to have tea, watch opera, and compose poems. Why are you bringing her along? She was just a country girl who barely knew a few words and was incredibly crude." I always tried to persuade Zhao Cheng'an to speak up for Ju Ruolan. My cousin is intelligent, but she has no one to teach her since she was a child. Now that she is in our family, it is only natural to bring her out to see the world. But I really don't know when she and Zhao Cheng'an got together, and Zhao Cheng'an actually came up with such a despicable plan for her sake, to pretend to have amnesia, break off the engagement with me, and elope with her. My father was an honest man, and out of concern for the Chu family's reputation, he actually wanted to cover up this matter. However, less than 3 days later, the news that Zhao Cheng'an had eloped with my cousin spread among the wealthy and noble families of Kyoto. My father was ridiculed by some of his colleagues. After court, he came to my room and asked for my opinion. Seeing that I remained silent, my father said, "Jiwan, if you insist on having that son of the Xiao family, I will make arrangements for you. At worst, I'll just have to swallow my pride and give up my old face. But in my opinion, the young master of the Xiao family is a fool for eloping with Ruolan and doing such a reckless and illicit thing. You should think this through carefully." I bowed to my father and said carefully, "Since ancient times, the marriage of children has been decided by their parents. Since you think he is a foolish man and not worthy of your daughter's lifelong commitment, then please, father, cancel this engagement for your daughter." Upon hearing this, the father nodded repeatedly and said, "Good child. Don't worry." With that, he went to his study, wrote a letter of annulment, and sent it to the Duke's mansion. The poor Duke of the state only recently learned that Zhao Cheng'an had done such absurd and foolish things. When he received our family's letter of annulment, he was so angry that his face turned pale. He immediately ordered the tokens to be returned, and said, "When that unfilial son returns, I will make him come to the Prime Minister's residence to kowtow and apologize." He also said he would hold a banquet to apologize to his father. The Duke's mansion has certainly given my father a lot of face. I don't know why, but after my father called off my marriage to Zhao Cheng'an, I felt a sense of relief. It was as if a huge weight had been pressing on my chest. I felt lighter and more cheerful that day. I took Granny Li and 2 maids with me to do needlework, preparing to make a dress for my mother. But then his father's voice came from outside. "Your Majesty, this is my inner quarters. Would you like to sit in my study?" Immediately afterward, I heard a young man chuckle. "My dear minister, is it your wife whom I cannot see in your inner quarters, or your young lady?" 04. I immediately knew something was wrong, so I quickly got up and fixed my makeup. My father was unaware that this benefactor had once confessed his feelings to me behind everyone's back, and had even gone on a secret trip to the Chunni restaurant to invite me to watch a play, but I remained oblivious. Since he didn't bring it up, I pretended to be young and ignorant. I kept telling him that I had been betrothed to Zhao Cheng'an since childhood. In that brief moment of surprise, Jiyu Mingxian, dressed in an ordinary moon-white robe, walked in without any entourage. I was busy leading Granny Li and the young maids in bowing. He didn't presume to be arrogant and said to Granny Li, "Granny, please go out first. I'd like to have a few words with your young lady." Upon hearing this, Granny Li hurriedly led the 2 maids out. The father, however, did not move. "Jiang Gaiqing, get out," Jiyu Mingxian said directly. My father agreed. But he didn't move. I knew he was very worried about me. Jiang Wei, do you want me to draft an imperial edict? Jiu Mingxuan's tone already carried a hint of displeasure. I quickly gave my father a wink, and he then said, your subject takes his leave. After my father left, Jiu Mingxian looked around my room, then picked up the dress I had made for my mother and asked with a smile, little sister Jiwan, can you even make dresses? Following protocol, I bowed to him and then respectfully asked, Your Majesty, has come to instruct me on something? No, I just came to take a look, it was on my way. He changed the subject. I smiled and said, if Your Majesty has nothing else to do, would you like to visit Father's study? Jiu Mingxian was clearly taken aback for a moment, then he turned around and poked my forehead before saying, Sister Jiwan, I heard that you broke off your engagement, so I came to see you. I came here especially to comfort you. I think His Majesty came here specifically to see me make a fool of myself, I said, not caring at all, going along with his line of thought. The news of the Prime Minister's family and the Duke's family annulling their engagement has probably spread like wildfire throughout the capital, with countless versions circulating. Oh right, little girl, you've been jilted. Nobody wants you now, Jiu Mingxian said. With great interest. How about it? Why not marry me? As he spoke, he sat down in the chair I usually sit in and said, Sister Jiwan, if you refuse me, I will announce to the whole world that you wet the bed when you were a child. I stared at him blankly. Every child wets the bed when they're little. But how did he know? I voiced my doubts, and he chuckled in a cheeky manner. Little sister Jiwan, how reliable do you think your father is? When you were young, your maternal grandfather was seriously ill and missed his daughter, so your mother went back to her parents' home in Suzhou to take care of him. That day, for some reason, your father took you to the palace. Then, he accompanied the late emperor to play mahjong. I'm leaving you with me. You cried and made a scene, and you even peed all over me. I finally managed to cheer you up, but then your father came and took you away. At that time, I was extremely angry. I really didn't know that I had done something like this when I was a child. My father was once the late emperor's tutor, and the two had a very good relationship. When I was young, the late emperor was still alive, and my father did often take me in and out of the palace. I carefully considered my words before asking, why is Your Majesty angry? Jiu Mingxian thought for a moment before saying, at that time, I didn't know why I was angry. I just felt unhappy watching your father carry you away. I'm a little worried, since he's so irresponsible. Will he just leave you with the wet nurse or maid when he gets back? What can we do if the old women don't care? You're so small. What will you do if you get hungry, cold, or afraid of the dark at night? Eunuch Zhong kept comforting me, saying that Lord Jiang would definitely take good care of me. I think, when you grow up, I'll take you away from you. But I was not yet grown up when your father betrothed you to the Xiao family. Jiwan, I'm telling you, I'm really angry. Why should I? Sister Jiwan, will you marry me? Jiu Mingxuan's gaze fell on me, and he asked in a low voice. I tilted my head and thought about it seriously. Zhao Cheng'an was wrong about one thing. There were still eligible men among the nobles and princes of the capital. He simply overlooked the royal family. I picked up an old handkerchief I had used from the side and threw it into his arms. Jiu Mingxian was taken aback. Then overjoyed, he suddenly wrapped his arms around my waist and hugged me, saying, Sister Jiwan, I'm so happy. Wait for me, I'm going to discuss the marriage with your father. As he spoke, he unabashedly pecked me on the cheek, then folded the handkerchief and put it in his pocket. He ran out happily. 05. My father was actually sitting in the outer room. He watched Jiu Mingxian come out, smiled for a moment, and then slowly got up. Your Majesty, I heard everything. Jiu Mingxian was overjoyed and went to the study with my father to discuss my marriage. The emperor's wedding was naturally different from others. In the evening, my mother came to my room. I quickly got up to offer her a seat and poured her some tea. She looked at me for a long time before softly saying, Jiwan, tell your mother the truth. What really happened between you and His Majesty? I told my mother everything that had happened. Why didn't you tell me about this? The mother said. I sighed, took my mother's hand, and said, Mother, as you know, I was betrothed to the Xiao family when I was young. He spoke vaguely about it. So I just pretended not to understand. Speaking out will only cause more trouble." The mother smiled and said, "This matter was actually a foolish thing your father did. Back then, he got drunk with the Duke and casually agreed to your marriage. Alas, Jiwan, now that you have agreed to His Majesty's request, that's enough." Only at this point, the mother hesitated. "I know that the royal family has always had difficulty producing offspring. The old royal uncle only has one little princess now, whom he cherishes more than his own eyes. The late emperor only had one son, your Majesty, and the little princess under the Empress Dowager's name was adopted." "Mother, I know how difficult it is to have a royal heir," I said softly. The mother nodded and said, "Your father specifically instructed that we should not speak any unrelated doctrines before the imperial edict is issued." I hurriedly agreed. Zhao Cheng'an didn't get to enjoy Zhu Ruolan's time in Jiangnan for long. After only about 20 days, the Duke had her brought back by his men. Naturally, as an unmarried girl, her cousin Zhu Ruolan could only return to the Jiang family at this time. Her mother naturally didn't give her a kind look and ordered people to clean up the rooms in the southwest corner for her to live in temporarily. Then, the Xiao family came to the Jiang family to propose marriage. After all, their elopement caused quite a stir, and it's said that Zhu Ruolan was even pregnant. When the two families discussed the marriage, the Duke's mansion knew that my cousin was just a distant relative of the Jiang family. Years ago, she traveled a long way to come to our family for help. My mother took pity on her and let her stay to keep me company. Therefore, the marriage arrangements couldn't be handled properly, and with the scandal of their elopement already in the works, the Duke's mansion was pressing for an agreement. In short, they had two words to say ASAP: the Duke's family's betrothal. Gifts were just for show. As for the dowry, it's all about appearances. Everything that's expected will be included, and anything that's not expected should be avoided entirely. But Zhu Ruolan was very happy. That evening, she strolled into my room and looked around. Seeing that I, Granny Li, was embroidering a bright red pomegranate red shoe brocade skirt with two maids, she reached out and touched it, feeling both envious and jealous, and said, "Good sister, this bright red doesn't suit you. Why don't you give it to me?" Before I could speak, Granny Li said, "Miss Ruolan, you're pregnant now. You're very precious. Why aren't you resting in your room? What are you doing here? Our young lady isn't suited to bright red, but you are, a scoundrel who eloped without a matchmaker. Don't you dare tarnish my young lady's dress." As she spoke, Granny Li beckoned the maidservants serving outside to come in. "Are you all blind? You're letting all sorts of little creatures into Mrs. Room." Outside, 4 maids came in and shoved Zhu Ruolan out, saying, "Miss Ruolan, why don't you go sit in your room? After doing something so shameless, you shouldn't come out and become a nuisance." Zhu Ruolan was furious. She flung the old women aside and shouted, "Jiang Jiwan, why can you discuss marriage with the young master, while I'm shameless for using a little strategy? Let me tell you, you'd better know your place. I am the young master's lawfully wedded wife, and you're bound to be the one who comes in later than me. At that time, you will also need to perform the rites of a concubine and serve me tea." I found it amusing, but the maids and servants below scolded them angrily. "How dare you? Get out of here right now." Zhu Ruolan sneered, "Outrageous. TSK. My outrageous acts are yet to come. If you're so capable, then make sure your young lady doesn't marry the young master." With that, she turned and left with the little girl. Granny Li shook her head and said, "Miss, don't worry about it." I laughed and said, "I don't have time to care about such trivial matters. Let her make a fuss." 06 Since that day, the servants in the house have become more careful, keeping an eye on Zhu Ruolan and forbidding her from coming to my room again. I thought that once she got married, she wouldn't cause any trouble. Unexpectedly, 2 days later, Zhao Cheng'an brought her along. Even though our two families broke off the engagement, the Prime Minister's mansion and the Duke's mansion have always maintained close ties and a very good relationship. I grew up with Prince Xiao, and due to a servant's oversight, he came to my room as usual. I hurried out from inside and into the main room outside, where I ordered a maid to serve tea to the guests. "Jiwan, there's something I want to discuss with you." Zhao Cheng'an sat down on a chair outside, and Zhu Ruolan nestled beside him, looking delicate and frail. There was a hint of provocation in his eyes. I asked, Does your highness wish to discuss something with me? Zhao Cheng'an considered for a moment before saying, Jiwan, I heard that the Empress Dowager once bestowed upon you a set of gold, kingfisher feather, and pearl headdresses. Ruolan is getting married, and she has no parents to prepare a dowry for her. Making gold jewelry at this time would be rushed, so why don't you lend her this set of jewelry for a few days? I put down my teacup and sneered, Young Master Xiao, are you joking? If you're worried about your cousin being wronged, your duke's mansion has never lacked these things. I've heard that your old lady prepared a set of ruby-inlaid gold jewelry for her granddaughter a long time ago, which reportedly cost 1,000 gold pieces. Go back and borrow it from your sister. Your mother and grandmother were both first-rank noblewomen, and they probably each had several sets of kingfisher feather and jeweled gold jewelry. Why would you care about something as small as mine, if your highness has nothing else? Please leave, I have other matters to attend to. Zhao Cheng'an probably didn't expect that I would refuse him. He was stunned for a moment, then laughed and said, Jiwan, don't be stubborn, I'm borrowing from you because we'll be family sooner or later. Grandmother's and mother's things are another matter. I frowned and rebuked him angrily. Your highness, watch your words. Who are you family with? Someone. See the guest out. Zhao Cheng'an didn't mind and whispered a few words in Zhu Ruolan's ear. Zhu Ruolan was somewhat displeased, but she still swayed her hips and walked outside. I sighed softly. When Zhu Ruolan first came to our house, she walked like a water snake, swaying with every step, delicate and boneless, with a seductive and alluring gaze. My mother had the nanny in the house give her some real guidance. The ladies in the palace who taught etiquette had also said that she seemed to have changed, but now, in order to seduce Zhao Cheng'an into having sex, she had gone even further than before. After Zhu Ruolan left, Zhao Cheng'an stood up, bowed to me, and said with a smile, Good sister, don't be angry, I know it was my fault, but don't worry, once Ruolan enters the family, I will have the old lady come to the Jiang family to propose marriage. As you know, if it weren't for this, the Prime Minister would never have allowed Ruolan to marry into my Xiao family. I snorted coldly before saying, Young Master Xiao, our two families have already annulled the engagement. Zhao Cheng'an didn't mind and chuckled, Good sister, what nonsense are you talking about, breaking off the engagement? The Prime Minister was just angry for a moment. Are you willing to break off the engagement with me? As he spoke, he actually reached out to grab my hand. I quickly dodged away, saying, Young Master Xiao, please be careful. Zhao Cheng'an remained unchanged, saying, My dear sister, I know you're angry, but Ruolan grew up with you, can't you be a little more lenient with her, even though she started learning earlier than you? Does she think she can surpass you? Don't worry, I've always had you in my heart, don't you understand? I stepped into the inner room and called out, Granny, see the guest out. Then he called to the maid and said, The master has been invited from the study outside, tell him that young Master Xiao has arrived. Seeing my reaction, Zhao Cheng'an became somewhat annoyed and asked me directly, Jiang Jiwan, are you going to lend that jewelry or not? No, I said firmly, fine, if you won't lend it, then don't marry into this family. With that, Zhao Cheng'an walked away with a stern face. 07. I heard that after Zhao Cheng'an returned home, he asked his mother for a set of kingfisher feather and gemstone jewelry, but his mother refused. He then went and made a scene at the Xiao family's old lady. The old lady simply said, I'm tired. In the end, he wanted to buy it with money, but as a young master, his money was managed by special people, so he couldn't do as he wished. With the wedding date fast approaching, Zhao Cheng'an still hadn't been able to raise the necessary jewelry that Zhu Ruolan wanted to enhance her image. Until the day before the wedding, Xiao's mother sent over a floral crown, which turned out to be made of paper and decorated with a deep blue color. Zhu Ruolan flew into a rage, ignoring everyone's attempts to stop her, and stormed into my room, angrily shouting, Jiang Jiwan, do you really have to resort to such despicable means to humiliate me? Should I ask the Xiao family to give me a paper flower crown? Aren't you afraid that if you fall into my hands in the future, I'll make your life miserable? You should know that when you marry into the Xiao family, you will ultimately be unable to surpass me. As she spoke, she stroked her lower abdomen, leaned close to me, and sneered, Tell me, What would you do if I gave birth to the eldest son? I had no idea that the Xiao family would use such a method to humiliate her. Upon hearing this, I was both annoyed and amused. The funny thing is, she still doesn't understand that even if she marries him, she'll only be a concubine. This is only because the Duke's mansion is considering the Prime Minister's mansion's feelings. What's infuriating is that she lived in my house for several years, so how can she still be so confused? I stood up, moved a little further away from her, and then said, "Go back and prepare for your wedding. You're getting married tomorrow. I will not marry Zhao Cheng'an. Don't worry." She tossed her handkerchief around and sneered, "You think I'm kidding me?" With that, Zhu Ruolan, supporting the little girl, swayed her hips and walked away. The next day, Zhao Cheng'an, accompanied by a bridal sedan chair, picked up Zhu Ruolan as she left the Jiang family. Just then, eunuch Liu, who had come from the palace to deliver an imperial decree, arrived. The imperial edict announcing the investiture of the empress was a grand affair. The father opened the central gate and received the imperial edict first. Eunuch Liu congratulated my father, then greeted me. My father busied himself giving people money, offering tea and food, and chatting. Meanwhile, Zhao Cheng'an rode his horse, leading the bridal sedan chair, all the way there. When they arrived at the Xiao residence, the main gate was tightly closed, and even the side gates were blocked by guards. Two servants came over and bowed. "Young master." The old lady instructed that Miss Zhu should use the backside gate. Inside the bridal sedan chair, Zhu Ruolan was furious upon hearing this and was about to lift the curtain to lash out, but was stopped by the matchmaker. "Miss, please bear with it for now. We can talk about it after you're married." The matchmaker, who had known all along, immediately advised in a low voice, "It's enough that the young master has you in his heart. These rules and etiquette are nothing more than that." Hearing that the matchmaker's words made sense, Zhu Ruolan lowered her head and remained silent. Zhao Cheng'an didn't care. His trusted servant had already helped him dismount, while the maids and servants had already led the bridal sedan chair to the back gate. Just then, the streets erupted in commotion, with people shouting, "Quick, quick! There's a big celebration at the Prime Minister's residence. They're throwing money around." Then, amidst the chaos, someone asked, "What happy occasion?" "Hey, you don't know yet. The Prime Minister's eldest daughter has been made Empress by His Majesty. The imperial decree has come from the palace. The Prime Minister is in a good mood and has ordered the servants to distribute celebratory money. Go quickly, instantly." Many people on the street ran towards my door, even the servants and guards at the Duke's mansion, upon hearing this, beamed with joy and ran happily towards my door. Upon hearing this, Zhao Cheng'an seemed to have been struck dumb. He grabbed one of his servants and asked in surprise, "What did you just say? Whom does His Majesty appoint as Empress?" The servant smiled and said, "The eldest daughter of the Jiang family is Miss Jiwan." In an instant, Zhao Cheng'an felt as if he had been hit on the head with a stick, and the pain made his vision go black. The servant, oblivious to the situation, chuckled and said, "Young master, you don't know, His Majesty is overjoyed to hear that our family has broken off the engagement with the Prime Minister's residence." He personally went to the Prime Minister's residence to beg Miss Jiwan. Miss Jiwan tossed him an old handkerchief, and His Majesty was overjoyed. He went back and asked the Imperial Observatory to choose an auspicious time. "Your Highness, today is a joyous occasion for you, but I still need to go to the Prime Minister's residence to ask for some celebratory money. A few dollars is nothing, but this dignity is what's rare." With that, the servant ignored Zhao Cheng'an and ran away. Zhao Cheng'an felt dizzy and collapsed in front of his own door with a thud. Fortunately, it happened right at the entrance of the Duke's mansion. His servants and guards panicked and hurriedly carried him back. 08. Zhao Cheng'an didn't wake up until the evening when the lamps were lit. He didn't even put on his shoes and immediately ran to our house. Before he could even leave the house, he was stopped by Xiao's mother. "You wretched child, what are you doing at?" This time, Mother Xiao held her Buddhist prayer beads in her hand, looking at her beloved son with a look of utter disappointment. "I'll go find Jiwan and get to the bottom of this." Zhao Cheng'an stammered, "What are you asking?" Madame Xiao sighed, "You did such a shameless thing, eloping with a maid from the Prime Minister's residence, and you still want to take her into your household. What do you take the Jiang family for? The Jiang family has produced prime ministers for 2 generations. Jiwan's 2 elder brothers are, respectively, one serving in the Ministry of War and the other originally serving as His Majesty's tutor, and now serving as the Vice Minister of the Court of Judicial Review, said Madame Xiao. Your marriage to Miss Jiang is already a step up for you. You still think you can control her. You dare to take a concubine before even marrying her. Oh, no, that's not right. At this point, Xiao's mother's tone turned serious, and she sneered, Anna, I don't know what kind of bewitching potion that woman has given you, that you actually want to marry her and then manipulate Jiwan into becoming your concubine. For some reason, Zhao Cheng'an suddenly cleared his mind and exclaimed, Mother, no, that's not it, I just want Ruolan to come in first, otherwise, Prime Minister Jiang would never have allowed Ruolan to marry into the Duke's mansion. Mother Xiao sighed. Foolish, foolish thing. Zhao Cheng'an's lips trembled as he cried out, Mother, I was wrong. Please help me think of something. A method. Madame Xiao shook her head and said, His Majesty's decree has already been issued, and the Imperial Observatory has even chosen an auspicious day. In the palace, the Empress Dowager is busy preparing for His Majesty's marriage to her, and Xiao's mother sighed. Even if you rush over there now, you won't be able to see her. His Majesty is at the Prime Minister's residence. Upon hearing this, Zhao Cheng'an felt his vision blur and almost fainted again. He knelt down before Xiao's mother and cried out, Mother, Mother, save me. I can't live without Jiwan. I will go and beg my grandmother to go to the palace and plead with the Empress Dowager. As he spoke, Zhao Cheng'an got up, intending to go and ask his grandmother for help. Mother Xiao said softly, Your grandmother has already retired for the night. Even if you beg her, she loves you and will plead with the Empress Dowager for your sake. Anna, think carefully. Can you explain this to the Jiang family and to the Prime Minister? And how will you explain this to Miss Jiwan? Will she choose you, you treacherous scoundrel who tried to manipulate her into becoming his concubine? Or will she choose that noble lady in the palace? Zhao Cheng'an stood rooted to the spot, motionless. Xiao's mother's voice carried a hint of coldness as she said, Anna, what do you take His Majesty for? Just a decoration. Your father means that you shouldn't go out for the next few days. After a while, he will find you a post outside the capital, and you should never return to the capital. As she spoke, Madame Xiao instructed the servants, Take the master back to his room. Zhao Cheng'an stood there stunned. It seemed like someone had said something to him, but he didn't hear a word. He only felt a metallic taste in his throat and spat out a mouthful of blood. As a scion of a prominent family, he naturally understood the subtle meaning in his mother's words. Finding him a job away from the capital would naturally mean that the Duke's mansion would have nothing to do with him anymore. He not only lost his perfect marriage, but he also lost his position as heir apparent at this moment. He also realized what was going on. If he stays in the capital, people will inevitably mention Zhao Cheng'an when they talk about the Empress. It wouldn't sound good if the news reached His Majesty. I'm also afraid that His Majesty might have some thoughts on this. Therefore, in order to avoid suspicion, for the sake of the advancement of the remaining members of the Xiao family, and to please His Majesty and Prime Minister Jiang, the Duke's mansion simply abandoned him. After all, he has 2 younger brothers, both of whom are very good-looking, intelligent, and handsome. As for his illegitimate sons, his father had 3 more, and another son from a concubine's side of the family passed the imperial examination last year. Zhao Cheng'an was in a daze and returned to his room with the help of his servants 09. After Zhu Ruolan was carried in, the matchmaker and the Jiang family members received their reward money and then went home. He left her alone, standing by herself in the courtyard. She kept demanding to see Zhao Cheng'an, and the servants of the Xiao family just watched her make a scene. She asked, and everyone said they didn't know, and told her not to make things difficult for them, who were servants. After more than 2 hours of this ordeal, a maidservant finally came with a group of people and said to her, Miss Zhu, please come with me. Upon hearing this, Zhu Ruolan hurriedly followed. The maid led her to 3 extremely secluded rooms and said, The young master has instructed that you be temporarily placed in Chiotong residence to recuperate. Zhu Ruolan went inside and was furious. The house was extremely dilapidated. covered in cobwebs, and the ground was covered in a thick layer of dust, even worse than the rundown house she had lived in Jingju. She was about to have an attack, but didn't know who to turn to. She had lived in our family for several years, so she naturally knew that there were strict rules in a large family, and now she had married into our family as she wished. Zhu Ruolan had naturally thought that since she had used such methods to steal my marriage, the elders of the Xiao family would not like her and she would inevitably suffer some grievances, so she decided to put up with it. She instructed Chuanxing, the little maid she had brought, to tidy up the house. In the evening, a burly maid brought some food. When Zhu Ruolan saw it, she found it was all unpalatable food, leftovers from others. That's bad enough, but it also smells rancid. Instantly, she burst into tears of anger. However, the young maid Chuanxing advised, "Miss, I suggest you make do with some of it. Who knows how we'll manage these days." Upon hearing this, Zhu Ruolan immediately became enraged and retorted, "I am the young master's lawfully wedded wife. Is this how the Duke's mansion treats its new bride? I will definitely go to the Duke tomorrow and demand an explanation." Chuanxing sighed, "Miss, why are you seeking justice from someone? Do you have your father or brothers backing you up? Do you have a dowry of immense value, like a 10-mile-long procession of red silk? You have none of these things. You have no mother, no father, no brothers, and your family is so poor that you can't even afford to eat. That's why you came to the capital to seek refuge with our master." "Miss, you don't actually think our master is your biological father, do you? Does the Duke even need to glance at you?" Upon hearing this, Zhu Ruolan was so angry that her eyes rolled back and she almost fainted. "Miss, please don't faint," Chuanxing said with a smile. "I'm just Madam's maid, always at your beck and call. Now that you're married, I've come to escort you here, and I need to go back to report to my wife. This servant will be leaving now." As she spoke, Chuanxing curtsied to her and turned to walk away. She also hired a maid to escort her out. When the servants of the Duke's mansion heard that she was originally my mother's maid who was being escorted to the wedding, they immediately became extremely polite to her, addressing her as Miss repeatedly. They lit lamps and escorted her all the way to the door. Zhu Ruolan was all alone and couldn't help but cry, but this time, she couldn't find anyone to cause trouble for. By evening, the gate outside the courtyard was locked. Then they heard someone speaking loudly, "Make sure everyone stays awake tonight. Don't just lie there like corpses. Make sure she doesn't get lost." The tone of his voice was as if he were treating her like a prisoner. The next day, she hoped that Zhao Chenggan would take her to visit her mother-in-law and the old lady, but Zhao Chenggan did not come. She had no choice but to spend 5 taels of silver before the maid at the door told her, "Young master, I heard that he broke off his engagement with Miss Jiang and was so angry that he vomited blood and had to call a doctor overnight. Oh, you probably don't know yet. Miss Jiang has been crowned empress. That noble lady in the palace is very fond of her. Because of this, our young master has been severely punished, and the Duke is furious and wants to use family discipline." "What, you're the young master's wife?" Upon hearing this, the woman scoffed and said, "Young lady, are you truly ignorant, or are you feigning ignorance? Even a lowly servant like myself understands this principle. How can you not? The plays all say that if someone elopes with another, he will become a concubine or a wife. You shameless thing, who had an affair with our young master without any matchmaker, can only be considered a lowly concubine. That's not all, you also ruined our young master's marriage. For now, you can just stay here and suffer." A few days later, Zhao Chenggan, despite being ill, came to my house wanting to see me, but I refused. The next day, a carriage from the Duke's mansion took him to Yuju to serve as the magistrate of a small county under its jurisdiction. It was only 2 days later that Zhu Ruolan learned that Zhao Chenggan had gone to Yuju, and that she had been imprisoned in the inner quarters of the Duke's mansion. She cried and begged the servant guarding the door to let her out. Kneeling on the ground during the scuffle, she accidentally aggravated her pregnancy. Naturally, no one called a doctor for her, and just like that, the baby was lost. She cried her heart out, but eventually rallied her spirits. And at that moment, another absurd idea popped into her head. It doesn't matter that Zhao Cheng'an went to Yuju. The Duke's mansion has plenty of young masters with her looks. She could seduce Zhao Cheng'an, and naturally she could seduce others as well. She carefully considered her options and decided that she could only be a concubine, if she was going to be one. She wanted to be the best, so she set her sights on the Duke. She would dress up, applying makeup and cosmetics, making herself look alluring every day. In the end, she took the jade bracelet I had given her that day, exchanged it for money, bribed the servants who were watching over her, and also found out the Duke's whereabouts. And so, in front of the Duke, she stumbled, her body going limp as if she had no bones, and collapsed into his arms. The Duke was so angry that his face changed color. The entire Xiao family was furious. That's not all. The Duke's mansion even sent a letter to my family, asking my father what his explanation was. My father smiled and simply said, "Back then, she came to Beijing alone. Seeing how pitiful she was, we took her in, but she's not really part of our family. The Duke can dispose of it as he sees fit." Xiao's mother hated her to the core. Her son's perfectly good marriage was ruined by her, and now it also involves that noble lady in the palace. Returning to the capital became a difficult task for Zhao Cheng'an in this lifetime. He was separated from his mother by a great distance, and even seeing her was difficult. She didn't say anything about Zhao Cheng'an, but she hated Zhu Ruolan to the core. He immediately ordered his servants to strip her of her clothes and beat her with small bamboo sticks. After only half a day of beatings, his buttocks, back, and thighs were all bruised and swollen, but the skin was not broken. The next day, he ordered someone to drag Zhu Ruolan over again, and she was again beaten with small bamboo sticks on her palms and soles, and so they continued to fight like this every day, but never used lethal force. After only a few months of fighting, Zhu Ruolan's entire body was covered in sores that not a single patch of healthy flesh remained, and her wounds gradually began to fester. She screamed in pain every day, but he was still held down and beaten with a board. Knowing she had no chance of escaping punishment, Zhu Ruolan cursed Zhao Cheng'an herself and His Majesty every day. The servants of the Duke's mansion panicked and hurriedly covered her mouth, then slapped her hard across the face again. After several days of this commotion, Zhu Ruolan gradually grew weak and hoarse, and died on a bright spring afternoon. Upon hearing this, I simply sighed softly. She didn't know that when she came to my house seeking shelter years ago, my father didn't like her, but my mother said she was very beautiful and she would keep her to keep me company when I get married in the future. She will marry as a concubine so that we can support each other. At first I didn't understand, but as I got a little older, I naturally understood. Privately, I once told my mother that in the future, it would be reasonable for my father to find a good family outside and properly marry her off. Don't make her feel wronged. I never dreamed that she and Zhao Cheng'an would be involved in an elopement scandal. 11. I entered the palace in late spring, with a grand procession of 10 miles of red bridal attire. The Empress's entourage was extravagant and magnificent. 3 months after my wedding to Jiyu Mingxian, the imperial physician discovered that I was pregnant. The royal family has always had difficulty producing offspring, so Jiyu Mingxian was overjoyed to learn of this. He ordered the palace servants to do this and that, causing chaos in the palace. After 10 months of pregnancy, she gave birth to the eldest son of the royal family, and Jiyu Mingxian was overjoyed. The Ministry of Rites proposed to hold a selection of concubines several times, but he rejected it each time, often saying, "My wife and I are deeply in love, so please don't mention the selection of concubines again." In the 3rd year after my marriage, in the spring of that year, my mother came to the palace to see me and secretly told me that Zhao Cheng'an had died when bandits broke out in Yuju. He personally led men into the mountains to suppress them, but was struck by a poisoned arrow. He died after several days of treatment. I was stunned for a moment, and when I looked up at the window, I suddenly realized that Zhao Cheng'an seemed like a person from another world. Since marrying Jiyu Mingxian, every little thing about him has gradually filled my heart. Later, after having children, they became my main focus. That's not all. The palace affairs were tedious and consumed some of my energy. Jiyu Mingxian also said that he hoped I could give him another child. End. Springtime is here, time for brewing and making flowers. The end. That's all for today's story. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and subscribe. If you have any suggestions, feel free to leave a comment below. See you in the next video.